Am I a haul for telling my brother an ex-friend that I won't attend their wedding? My brother 26 male, who I'll call John, got engaged to his girlfriend for years, who I'll be calling Lily 25 female and invited me 24 female to their wedding. For some backstory, Lily was my friend in high school through college who I can fight it in, and I have cut off all contact from my family due to several things, but mainly my parents treating my brother like a prized jewel and me like crap. So I felt extra betrayed when my friend told me she was dating my brother and dropped her. I heard they got engaged over quarantine. It had set their dates in April on my birthday. Funny coincidence. In February of this year, my mother borderline stalked me and found where worked and would stand outside every day for a week begging me to go to the wedding. This was truly embarrassing for me as my coworkers saw it and I had to explain what was going on. I kept my answer the same and said no repeatedly and then threatened to call the cops on my mother, first talking so she stopped showing up, but then began constant DMS in my social media accounts for my family, I assume, as I blocked their main account, saying that I was a piece of crap and ruining my brother's big day. I reminded them that the wedding was on my birthday and that I had no wish to see them ever again and blocked those accounts as well. The harassment stopped at the end of February, so I thought that was the last of it until March, when my ex-friend showed up at my apartment building and handed me an invitation. I threatened to call the cops on her, as well as I have no idea how they even found where I lived, and she left. But then recently I've had so much mail, several invitations addressed to me, so I unblocked my parents on social media and told them to F off and stop borderline stalking me, because there was no way in hell I was going to his wedding. They said they would leave a seat for me at the wedding in hopes I would come to my senses. This whole situation has made my blood boil, as this behavior is part of the reason I cut off contact from them. They're willing to go to the ends of the earth for my brother, but completely disregarding my feelings and wants. I will admit I was the perfect child and have done my fair share of bad things, but so how's my brother even worse things in my opinion. But who is the perfect child? Now their wedding and my birthday is in 2 days, and I'm wondering if I should just suck up my pride and go home. Mariho. Edit. They were abusive to me in my childhood, both my brother and family, and would throw stuff at me like pots and glass and would constantly ruin my self-esteem. Sorry for not enough context. And my friend knew about this. My brother also assaulted someone, but no charges were pressed due to the person being very young, and the parents didn't want to drag her into something that would probably end up with the judge taking my brother's side. I believe the victim because she told me when we were babysitting her and she was too young to make that up. Now for the top comments. Not stay home, but it sounds like some counseling might be in order. With the information you provided, it really sounds like you overreacted. Cutting your friend out of your life and going no contact with your family. Boundaries are great, not saying otherwise. I didn't know if I should have given more info, but basically I was physically and mentally mistreated by my parents, and my brother has done morally and legally wrong things with no repercussions from them. I may have overreacted by cutting off my friend, but I thought that if she began dating him, the same thing would happen, that she would start hating me and treating me like crap. Being in love with my brother due to the trauma my parents caused. Info. Why do you think they're doing this? For your brother and not because they personally miss you. I'm sure they are doing this partly because they miss me, but I have made my feelings clear that I don't want to go. But they can't respect that because my brother wants me to go because I'm a sister, and in his opinion I have to go because we grew up together. They probably missed their punching bag. It doesn't even sound like they offered any apology. Then set the date on your birthday. Nah man, I do not believe for a moment that was intentional nor well intended. Now today haul and stay away from these people. Not stay home. You are better off without them, and hopefully not showing up will clue them in once and for all that you are completely done with all of them. Odds are they only want you there so badly because they don't want to have to explain your absence to extended family. Ding ding ding. God forbid precious baby boy not have a picture-perfect wedding. It sounds like everybody was just fine with Opie's no contact until they needed her to play nice and pretend they're a perfect happy family for day. Opie, you are so not stay home. Next story. A Marie Hall for freaking out at my mother-in-law for wearing my wedding dress. My husband and I had a fairly casual wedding. It wasn't what I wanted, but I was pregnant and we couldn't afford more at a time. I'm that girl who always dreamed of a big fancy wedding. Mother-in-law made it clear that she wasn't paying because she was mad at us. Now obviously I didn't expect her to pay, but it was like she wanted me to know that she was mad. My dress was a maxi with some beading and it only cost about $300 and was formal. Without being too bright on, we are staying with my in-laws right now, but mother-in-law is having a mega surprise baby, as she was told she couldn't have more kids. She is really excited but also being rude about it and acting like it is a do-over baby and acting like my husband is irrelevant because she wanted a girl the first time and is now getting one. Mother-in-law asked if she could borrow something because her friends planned a surprise shower and she doesn't have any nicer dresses that fit. I still have a lot of my maternity stuff and said yes. Went to work and didn't think about it. After work I checked social media and she was all over my feet wearing my freaking wedding dress. I was shocked and immediately felt violated. I began to cry and I called her __. Didn't answer her. When I got home, she was home and out of my dress. He asked what the heck she was thinking, and she was like, huh. I screamed at her that she wore my wedding dress. Mother-in-law replied that I said she could borrow something. I said, but not my wedding dress. Are you freaking stupid? Mother-in-law told me to stop yelling and started whining that it was a fancy shower and she's too lazy to shop for maternity clothes. I yelled back, which you don't even have a job. Her husband told us both to come down, and I was like, well, where is your wedding dress? I want to cut it. Mother-in-law claims she doesn't care if I cut it as her wedding is over and said I'm acting like an idiot. Again, this was some stupid fancy shower, but it was a freaking wedding dress. I cried for a while and I'm still pissed, but mother-in-law swears I'm overreacting and crazy. Everyone sucks here. This should be a clear, not the a-hole, except you went way overboard with your response to this. You wanted to cut her wedding dress. Learn how to communicate. Yeah, that was crossing the crazy line. Alright, no going back now. Honestly kind of feel like Opie set her up to do something crazy. I cannot imagine letting someone freely browse my closet for a fancy dress to wear, especially if she hates me and especially if she has money and could obviously buy a dress for her own shower, not stay home. I swear it's common sense not to touch someone's wedding dress without permission, no matter how fancy dress it is. Asking to borrow an outfit and asking to borrow a wedding dress are two different questions, as most people view the dress as a special thing, not in everyday wear. She knows it's your wedding dress too, not as if she just mistook it for a general fancy dress. Most stay home very clear, not real. Your mother-in-law knew what she was doing, and anyone saying your day haul or everyone sucks here doesn't realize just how big of a deal this is. I mean, it's your wedding dress. You shouldn't have had to make it clear that it was off limits. That should have been 100 obvious. And what tells me that your mother-in-law knew what she was doing and did it to spite you is her comment about not paying for the wedding and being super nasty about your wedding in general. Next story. Am I a hall for telling my wife no more unsupervised visits between our kids and their grandparents? My wife and I have been together for 8 years, married for 5, and we have 2 daughters. It doesn't really matter, but given the situation of things, the 6-year-old is biologically mine while the 10-year-old is not. The two often spent Friday to Sunday at their grandparents' house. I've noticed our 10-year-old for a few weeks has been quiet upon picking them up. She wouldn't tell me what was wrong though. This afternoon she was emotional when she got in my truck. I could tell she had been crying. We were heading to Walmart before going home and I wasn't going to force her into the store. Upset. Finally, after some prying, she told me her grandmother is being rude to her. She explained how she is forbidding her any treats, making comments about her body, which is only allowed vegetables and chicken, but gives the 6-year-old whatever she wants, while saying to the 10-year-old, when you lose weight you can enjoy these things in moderation. This morning the grandparents brought in donuts. 10-year-olds knocked one and went to their room. Grandmother walked in to find her shoving it behind the bed. After taking a bite, she flipped her lid on her for sneaking food and making a mess. I was so livid I left the kids in the truck, called her from the parking lot, and ripped into her. I will admit I was pissed and was aggressive with my tone and words. Grandmother's only response was she has to take matters into her own hands because I, as the stepfather, do not care about her granddaughter's health. My daughter seemed relieved in the sense she got it off her chest, and I told her to ignore her grandmother because that was very inappropriate behavior. We went into the store, got our groceries. And feeling bad, I bought each daughter a gift for just because and to take the 10-year-old's mind off things. When we got home, my wife was very upset about how I spoke to her mother. I told her what she did. She saw the girls' toys I bought. My wife says, you know, regardless of how you feel about what my mom did, I can't believe you rewarded bad behavior because she 10-year-old did disobey my mom's rule about only eating healthy foods while at her house. What she did was traumatizing to our child. I told my wife no more unsupervised overnight stays at their house. My wife said that was totally unreasonable and I needed to apologize to her mother for my explosive behavior over the phone. I'm man enough to apologize for my tone, but not the plan of action to protect the child. Now for the comments. Not stay home. That little girl is lucky to have you. Her mother and grandmother are only going to succeed in giving that child body issues and an eating disorder if they keep this up. Exactly this. Thank goodness she has you. Not stay home. Not stay home. You are a great stepdad. This is none of her grandmother's business. It is not her place to take matters into her own hands. She does not deserve an apology. You deserve an apology as well as a 10-year-old. Your wife needs to put her big girl pants on and protect her daughter. Thank you. I've just always felt bad for the kid because her dad is a deadbeat. In regards to parenting, he's more focused on his career and relationships with women. He gladly sideways parental rights because she was an accident anyways. Not stay home. As a person who's had eating disorders, partly also because of grandparents' comments, I applaud you for protecting the girl from a life of hating her body. You keep being a good stepdad. This my grandmother did some really messed up things to me when I was a kid, all revolving around eating at other bodily functions. I will say that they would be considered mistreatment now, but I didn't realize that until decades later and after much therapy. When I share the information with my mother, she was live ahead even though my grandmother had been dead at that point. For nearly a decade I never told my father my grandmother's son because their relationship was complicated. Grandfather was awful to him and I didn't want the Sully's memory of her. I spent my entire teenage years eating almost nothing and weighed very little. I still have a complicated relationship with food even after decades and tons of therapy. Opie, please share this with your wife so she can understand that, especially during formative years when the kids are growing and their bodies are changing. These types of behaviors from adults in authority positions can be extremely damaging to a young person's psyche. You were not they Hull, and if I had an award, I would give it to you. Keep being an awesome dad. Last story. MIA Hall for refusing to confront my mom over her insulting shower gift to my fiancé. My soon-to-be wife and I both come from families with money. Not trying to brag, but I consider it relevant. I would say my mom has quite a bit more than my in-laws, but we both grew up very spoiled. My fiancé is honestly the sweetest, most giving person I've ever met, but she was raised to expect people to go big for special occasions. My mom can be that way and is definitely not frugal, but she's also somewhat cold and much less family-oriented. My fiancé had her bridal shower a couple weeks ago and my mom bought the cheapest thing on a registry. My fiancé did notice simply because she has always felt my mom dislikes her. They do have somewhat of a history and everyone else went way over the top to celebrate her. Invalidated her feelings that my mom can be very cold, and we moved on. Now my mom's friend is also planning a wedding and my mom is throwing her a luncheon and hired a private chef. My mom was joking with another friend that they have to buy her extra gifts because she won't let them invite a lot of guests as it is a second marriage. The woman she was talking to was like, so spend a couple $1,000 each, right? And she won't notice the difference. My mom said she thought she already spent more than that just on the gifts. She proceeded to show her friend entire bag full of bathing suits, lingerie, and an expensive bag. Afterwards my fiancé asked if I thought it was weird that my mom would do all that for a friend but spent like $30 on her future daughter-in-law. I confirmed that it is very weird and my mom sucks. She asked if I was going to say anything, but I said no, and there is really no appropriate way to address it. She got annoyed and said she is my mom and I should be able to address it. I still refuse because it is just awkward, but she feels that I am not standing up for her. Not stay home. Mom's not obligated to like fiancé or shower her with gifts or affection. She got something off the registry like any attendee. You're not obligated to Intervene in their relationship. If it's cold but peaceable, just leave it alone. Not standing up for your future wife isn't the best way to start a marriage. Though if someone is treating your loved one poorly, especially if it's your mother, you're in the best position to address it. Standing up hell by demanding his mom spend more on his fiancé. Entitled much his mom did a bare minimum. He can't force her to like his fiancé. It sounds like his mom doesn't have a close relationship with him either. She's more like an egg donor than a mom. I'm going to go against the grain and say no a-holes here. I understand why your fiancé feels like the discrepancy is a slight against her, but I also understand your point that there's no good way to bring it up. It can easily come off as complaining about the price of the gift, and ultimately your mom is allowed to splurge on gifts for a good friend. Your fiancé can't really demand a larger gift. If it's a pattern larger issue, then your mom will do or say something else, and you can make sure to be on the lookout for that and address it. Then you can reassure your fiancé of that. Not they all. At the end of the day, your mother is not obligated to buy you or your wife anything expensive on your registry, regardless of how much money she has. Is it bad form for her to intentionally cheap out on her future daughter-in-law, but splurged on her friend? Kind of, but again, she might like her friend more than her future daughter-in-law, so again, she's not obligated. I would argue that the expectation of grand gifts is more telling of a fault on your fiancé's behalf. After all, regardless of wealth, we shouldn't expect grand gestures or gifts from anyone. Again, is it kind of bad form on your mother's behalf? Potentially, but we don't know the full context of her relationship with her daughter-in-law. If they're perpetually unkind or called to one another, then I don't know why either of you would expect her to do anything extravagant for your fiancé. All of that said, I think you're correct in not addressing it with your mother, because there's not a good way to do it, because complaining about the gift would make you and your fiancé